Today we'll be talking about another significant event of the League's failures, the Abyssinian Crisis. The factor that had led to their failure is quite debatable, and after analyzing the full history of the incident, we have concluded that it was due to three main reasons linked with each other. The League had failed because the leading nations were concerned more with their own self-interest than world peace, the League structure was very inefficient, and the League had no military power.
The first and most important reason that led the League to its failure is that the influencing leaders of the League largely looked after their own self-interest, as the Great Depression caused Britain and France to be in a weak economic position, whilst Italy's economy had become less dependent on Western Europe. Britain and France therefore had less leverage over Italy and was less inclined to take action against it. When Mussolini started to take action, the League could have stopped the invasion by blocking a passage through the Suez Canal, as the Italians were entirely dependent on it for access to East Africa. However, this was not done at the time, which allowed Mussolini's fleet to invade and send supplies to their army. This is particularly significant because the reason why the Suez Canal was not closed is because that Britain and France focused on their own self-interest. They have secretly signed a Stresa Pact with Italy, in which all three criticized German rearmament and agreed to stand against Germany. The two leaders of the League promised Mussolini that they would ignore his exploit in Abyssinia if he agreed to sign. This is because Britain and France wanted to stop Hitler from breaking the Treaty of Versailles and stand against the communist Russia, and Italy could be an influential ally in the future to help achieving these goals. With the Stresa Pact, Mussolini was sure that Britain and France would not act against him when he occupied Abyssinia. Furthermore, the Suez Canal was a constant source of income for the British as it is used as a trade and military route. Having it closed would worsen this economic situation Britain were in after the Depression. Therefore, the British did not dare to close it.
The League's structure was inefficient. As Italy began to occupy Abyssinia, the League was forced to impose sanctions to prevent further disputes. A committee was put together to decide what sanctions to impose against Italy, which include banning the export of weapons, metals, and rubber to Italy, but didn't include oil, what is most needed by the Italian armed force. Because France and Britain were feared that the Americans would not support the sanctions because the US thought that they wouldn't agree the sanctions on oil since Britain did not agree the sanctions on oil. By the time the League came up with a definitive solution, Italy had already swallowed Abyssinia and were enjoying the new resources that it had just won from conquering this whole country. With Italy economically getting stronger, there was little effect that the League can give on her. Along with Japan's exit, the sanctions became less powerful and had less effect on Italy. This is important as it showed how the League's committee was very inefficient, that the League's primary weapon, economic sanctions, were largely ineffective, as well.
Another reason that the League failed in Abyssinia was due to the fact that they did not have an aggressive military to withdraw Italy. In fact, they do not have their own military at all. This means that individual countries would have to use their own forces to push Italy out, which no country is willing to do so, including France and Britain, who does have the power to stop Italy, but again, due to the facts I mentioned earlier, France and Britain did not want to alienate Italy, as well as the fact that they're in a poor state for war. No conflict was opened. This is important because this marks the final straw of the League's failures. The leading nations did not want any conflict with Italy, the sanctions had been weakened, and the last resort, which is to force Italy out with armies, won't be possible in this situation. This means that they can do nothing about Italy but to ask them. In conclusion, this altogether combined with the fact that the League was incoherent, inefficient, and ineffective is why the League had failed in Abyssinia.